Norman, I'm going to embarrass you. You're kind of like the Steve Jobs of education. You've dreamt up and created some extraordinary institutions that are changing the way in which poor kids in particular are being educated. You dreamed up and created Uncommon Schools, one of the best networks of charter schools in the country. Then you dreamed up and created and now run the Relay Graduate School of Education, which has completely revolutionized the way in which teachers are trained. And then you dreamed up and helped give birth to Zern, which is really the cutting edge of education and technology. Thanks so much for joining us today.
It's a total pleasure to be here. You've totally embarrassed me.
That's my job. 3 questions for you today. The past, the present, and the future. How have things changed in the quarter century in which you've been doing this work? What are the things that excite you? What are the things that frustrate the hell out of you?
In 1983, there was a report that said that the nation is at risk, and it was as if our education system was so bad, it was as if a foreign power had invaded us. And I feel like in the past 25, 30 years, things have begun to improve, that we have focused the nation's attention on the plight of low-income children, and the education has begun to improve dramatically. In particular, there are proof points within charter public schools. Organizations like Uncommon Schools are now serving 12,000 students in New York and Newark and Boston and other places. And KIPP is now serving 58,000 children, and graduation rates have improved in New York City. And so I feel like, and teaching has generally improved across the board. There is a long way to go, but the nation is now working on helping poor kids get a good education.
You and I are old enough at this point, it's sad to say, that we remember that time a quarter of a century ago where people were really questioning whether or not poor kids could learn. And what you have proved is that, in fact, if adults do what's right for kids, they can. Talk a little bit about what's exciting you right now. What are the things that you are most juiced up about right this moment?
So you mentioned Relay. I feel like teaching has improved, and that there's a generation of people who believe that all kids, including poor kids, can learn at the highest level, and they're taking responsibility for making that happen. And they've begun to learn specific techniques and strategies. They're practicing them the way we would practice any musical instrument or sport, and they're performing at high levels. And at Relay, we're pioneering this teacher training. In addition, we're improving the way in which principals are leading instruction in their schools. The average principal in America right now spends 6 minutes a day in classrooms, and we want to get that up significantly. And by just getting principals to observe and give feedback to teachers improves outcomes for kids.
The way a great coach would on any sort of athletic team.
Absolutely.
Is there an example of something that's like one of those nuggets where a teacher should know something before heading into a classroom? They're learning it at Relay, but maybe they weren't learning it at the other graduate schools of education.
So a lot of the work is around questioning techniques. Mm-hmm. So some people call it cold calling. I like to call it warm calling students, and then helping students to stretch out their answers and making sure that you're able to check for understanding. These are practical techniques that teachers are using in classrooms that they can learn and be successful with.
That's great. That's great. So talk about the future. I mean, as you think about where things are likely to go in the next 5, 10, 20 years, what's exciting you?
Yeah, so a bunch of things. One is 45% of 18 and 19-year-olds think about going into teaching, but by the time they're seniors in college, only 10% do. So we're losing 75% of the people who might be teachers, and the idea is to find opportunities for them to start to become attracted to teaching during their undergraduate years without majoring in education, by learning rigorous subjects. Second thing is, you mentioned Zern. Schools have been the same for the past 100 years. The DNA or the grammar of schooling has been fairly constant. we need to start over and reinvent schooling to make it less boring, more interesting, and more engaging and effective for a wide variety of kids. I think technology has an opportunity to help with that. There's an opportunity to bring some of the great teaching that we've seen in our schools and put it online for the benefit of students all over the country, perhaps all over the world, but in particular to differentiate the instruction so that all students get the specific learning they need. It's really difficult to differentiate the instruction when you're a teacher in front of a classroom of 30 students all at once, but every student has his or her own pathway, and I think technology has the opportunity to change that, and that what we're likely to see in our grandchildren's lives is blended learning classrooms all across the board, where students are getting online learning and great in-person learning, where they're developing their character strengths and really reaching for the stars.
Robin Hood's always looking for great ideas. We're always looking to invest seed capital with brilliant entrepreneurs, and you're one of those go-to entrepreneurs. We are so excited when you come to us with big ideas. What's it like working with Robin Hood?
The organizations that I've been involved with wouldn't exist were it not for Robin Hood. Robin Hood is the key early investor that makes it possible, that invests in general operating support and believes in new ideas in advance and is there for the long term. There are people here who join the boards of the organizations, who give counsel and advice and technical assistance and support in every which way. Robin Hood is the premier philanthropic investor in nonprofit organizations in the world.
Norman, thanks for joining us today, and more importantly, thanks for Uncommon, thanks for Relay, thanks for CERN.
Thanks to you, David, and thanks to Robin Hood.